That's a great question. And the thing is, there's too much information out there. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of confusion going on.
Mm.
The simplest way to put this is you need to treat your flexibility training exactly like you treat your strength training. Because the way we do flexibility, it is strength training.
Mm.
So we're not talking about sitting and doing relaxed stretching, although there's a piece of the puzzle that's okay. That's a good
Mhm.
place for. But mainly we're developing strength in these end ranges. So we treat it and we program it, and that's what most people don't do, Paul, is they don't program their
Mm.
flexibility training like
Mm.
their strength training.
Mm.
So
Mm.
the flexible steel way, in fact, Pavel and I just came out with a product called Quicksilver. It's sold through the BJJ Fanatics thing, and that goes quite heavily into how to program your flexibility training, just like your strength training. But you need to wave the load. You need to have a light day. You need to have a medium day. You need to have a heavy day, and you need to coordinate that with your strength training. So what does that mean? A lot of people think, let's say that, you have a light day, a heavy day, and a medium day on your strength training, more or less. A lot of people think that, okay, so it's my light day on my lifting. Let's put that as my heavy day, my intense day on my stretching, my flexibility work, because I'm not going to be tired from the strength training. The the problem with that is if you do that, you never have a light day.
Mm.
You have a heavy flexibility training day and you follow that with a heavy, strength training day, you just never get recovery. So you need to coordinate those two things together. You do your stretching, your heavy duty isometric stretching as part of your strength training. You program it, you follow your program, you wave the load, you vary the intensity, you vary the frequency, you change some things. So we have something called specialized variety because eventually in your strength training, in your flexibility training, you hit a plateau. So you need to change things up, but just enough to continue getting the training effect. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So flexibility training to achieve more range of movement is done in conjunction with your strength training. In fact, the same time as it, just at the end of it.
So for example, one of the things that I think probably would confuse people, and our hands up, it's confused me numerous occasions. Like if you're wanting to get a bigger chest, there's a couple of moves that are going to do the work for you.
Mhm.
Whether there's the press up or a bench press, something like that. The muscle group feels really obvious. You can tap it. There's my chest. I need to get a bigger chest. But then the hamstrings. What is the where is it a particular attachment? Is it the tilt of the pelvis? You start going down this rabbit hole, and as you said, there's so much information out there, and we're all guilty of being Dr. Google, where we're like, oh yeah. So it's because my pelvis is anterior tilted. It's putting XYZ on my tendons, and that means that my calf is is it my calf? Is it my hamstring? Is it my pelvis? Before you know it, you go down this huge rabbit
It's
hole.
your psoas. It's always your psoas.
It's always your psoas. That's it.
Yeah.
You're two clicks away from your psoas.
I remember, I don't know if any of you guys did. I went down that psoas rabbit hole, and I ended up sticking a kettlebell in a certain part of your stomach, trying to,
Oh, we all have.
Yeah.
But if it's not your psoas, it's your piriformis. You see, I mean, it's all it's the way it goes. Isn't it? You can always tell how long someone's been in the fitness industry by which muscle to blame the problem on, can't you? Because they've gone further into Google.
And to be quite frank, it depends on your goals. How much flexibility do you need?
Yeah.
Do you need a lot of flexibility? Well, it depends on what your goals are. It depends on what your sport is. If you're trying to improve some sport, certain things require more flexibility than other things. So the answer is you need enough flexibility to do whatever movement your life or your sport or your hobby requires, plus 10% flexibility reserve, so that when life puts you in an uncomfortable, awkward position, you've been there before, you're strong in that spot. Too much flexibility can be a hindrance, and again, it depends on what you're doing. A ballet person or a kickboxer needs a lot more flexibility than a power lifter, but we all need, a balance of both.
It depends on your, well, not your definition of flexibility, but people, in my experience, people not get it wrong, but misunderstand what it actually is. As in thinking like, oh, I can get my legs behind my head, I'm very flexible. Isn't that great? And it's like, well, the way I see it, and David Keown, who we've had on here, is a great example of this, because he's a stone lifter. He's an ex-kettlebell sport athlete, and he's a stone lifter. He's got much bigger. He's put on like 20 kilos or something since he became a stone lifter, but he does a lot of yoga and stuff like that. So he's super strong, but he's super flexible as well. You know, he can do the prayer thing with his hands behind his back, and he's very good at all of that. And he did a workshop at James's place, and we were talking about the difference between active and passive ranges of motion. So, you know, you can get your leg up here, that's brilliant, but do you have to use you can get your leg behind your head, but do you have to use your arm to bring your leg up over there, or can you do it
through strength
without touching your leg? And if you can do that, so he was talking about closing that gap between active range of motion and passive range of motion is getting the strength in there. And then that is what flexibility actually is. So then you get your BJJ athletes and things like that, and they can get themselves into positions where they're flexible, and someone might put them in that position, but they can't actually get out of it. And then that's when they get injured, isn't it? And it's because they're in that position, but they can't control it. So, I mean, I don't know if I've explained that, but how would you explain that to somebody who, because like I say, you get a lot of people who think they're flexible, and they maybe are, but they've got no strength in that position. And then you said something great there with flexibility is actually strength. They're both the same thing.
I think the question would be really good, Pete, just is, I suppose, what is flexible still?